On Christmas, my sister handed me a paternity test while laughing and calling me the outsider. So I gave them one box with the truth inside. The moment Dad opened it, the entire family started falling apart piece by piece. Hey, Reddit! My parents always played favorites, and I got stuck as the extra in a family I didn't even ask to be part of. So I said screw it, built my own life, and moved on. But those people weren't finished with me yet. Before I get into the mess, let me start from the beginning. My name's Nathan Pierce, I'm 28, and I work in systems engineering, nothing glamorous. But it pays well and keeps me far away from my family most of the year. The Pierce household is made up of my mother, Karen, the kind of woman who thinks rules only apply to other people, my father, Greg, professional peacekeeper by silence, and my older twins, Megan and Tyler, 31, permanently convinced that they're the superior models of humanity. I'm the youngest by 3 years, but I've always felt like the only adult in the room. Anyway, Christmas, 2021. The day everything finally cracked, I pulled into the driveway around 10 a.m. The house looked exactly like it had every year of my childhood. The same faded inflatable snowman slumped in the yard, the same tangled light net thrown over the bushes like someone gave up halfway, the same wreath that probably dates back to the early 2000s inside. Karen had her usual holiday playlist blasting. The cinnamon roll smell hit instantly because she refuses to make anything else for breakfast in December. I stepped through the door, and the whole scene was exactly what I expected. Karen swooped in first, wearing an apron that basically said, "Look at me," without needing words. "Nathan, you're late," she announced, even though I was right on time. She gave me that stiff smile she uses when she's pretending to be warm, which is most of the time Greg was planted in his leather recliner like it was welded to his back. He nodded at me without speaking, acting like his silence kept the household from collapsing. In his mind, not choosing sides equals peace. In reality, he just let Karen run the place like a dictator. The twins were already on the couch surrounded by their mountain of expensive presents. Megan had her legs crossed like she was posing for an ad, scrolling her phone while pretending not to see me. Tyler was messing with one of his new gadgets, acting like a CEO unboxing tech no one else could afford. Both of them gave me identical dismissive glances, one of the perks of being born as matching narcissists. "Look who finally showed up," Megan said, not looking up. "Hey, +1, Tyler added. I dropped my bag by the door. "Merry Christmas to you too, dynamic duo." Karen clapped her hands together. "All right, gifts. Let's keep the holiday spirit going." Her voice had that sharp edge she uses when she's pretending to be cheerful, but really just wants everything done her way. The twins went first, of course. Greg and Karen showered them with the usual: high-end noise-canceling headphones, a smartwatch, some expensive jacket, designer sneakers. Each gift presented like a medal of honor. They gushed and bragged. Karen beamed like she birthed royalty. When it got to my pile, the energy drop was almost funny. A plastic bag with a cheap sweater that wasn't my size. A random mug with "Work Hard" printed on it. A generic gift card with no name on it. Literally handed to me like a participation award. I wasn't surprised. Same script, every year. Then Megan leaned forward with a small wrapped box. The expression on her face said she was about to deliver something she thought was iconic. "I got you something special," she said, dragging out the word like it had weight. I opened the box. Inside was a paternity test kit. I looked at it, then looked at her. She was grinning like she'd just solved world hunger. Tyler burst out laughing. "Dude, come on, that's perfect." Greg let out one of his awkward chuckles, the kind he uses when he knows Karen expects him to act a certain way. "Well, it's, funny," he managed. They all watched me like they were waiting for me to break, or yell, or storm out. I didn't give them the satisfaction. I lifted the test kit between two fingers. "Wow, thanks, Megan. This really screams I have no hobbies." Her smile faltered a little. I added, "Also, points for creativity. I didn't think any of you had it in you." Karen scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, it's just—" "Yeah," I cut in lightly. "I get it. You guys wanted to feel clever today." I stood up, brushing imaginary dust off my jeans. "Speaking of gifts, Dad, I actually got you something too. It's small, but you should open it." Greg blinked. "Me?" "Yeah," I said, pulling a sleek black box from my coat, "since we're doing family themes." I handed it to him casually, like I wasn't about to detonate their entire world. Greg took the box. Confused, Megan rolled her eyes. Tyler muttered, "Bet it's another mug." Karen folded her arms, already annoyed that attention shifted away from her twins. Greg opened the lid. His face drained so fast, it looked like someone pulled the plug on his soul. His eyes flicked across the page over and over, trying to deny what he was reading. Karen frowned. Greg? What is it? Why are you… He didn't answer. He couldn't. The twins finally stopped laughing. A full, heavy silence filled the room as Greg stared at the paper, like it was a gun pointed at his chest. Megan's smile disappeared. Tyler's posture straightened. Karen stepped closer, her voice tightening. Greg, what is that? He swallowed, but no sound came out. That was the moment. Right there, when the room shifted. Every smug face went still. Every insult died in their throats. Because they all knew, from Greg's expression alone, whatever was in that box, it wasn't something they could laugh at. Before we continue with what was in the black box or how everything blew up, I should probably explain how I grew up in that house. Otherwise, none of this will make sense. Trust me, the context matters. I wasn't raised in a normal family. Karen ran the house like a dictatorship, and the twins were her prize project. I existed mostly as background, noticed when something went wrong, ignored the rest of the time. She didn't even hide her favoritism. Megan and Tyler were the stars of her universe. Every school play, every minor achievement, every basic human task they completed was treated like a national event. They'd tie their shoes correctly, and Karen would act like they'd invented footwear. Me? I was the built-in scapegoat. Not mistreated physically, not banned from food and water or anything dramatic, just ignored unless they needed someone to blame. I learned early that the twins were the important ones, and I was the placeholder who didn't fit the color palette. From the start, I didn't look like them. The twins both have light brown hair, pale eyes, the same narrow nose, and the same tall, thin build. They literally look like clones. You could swap their baby pictures and nobody would notice me. Darker hair, hazel eyes, broader shoulders, different bone structure. Even my smile doesn't match theirs. I look like I got mailed to the wrong house. And trust me, they noticed. Everyone noticed. I'd hear comments constantly. Once, when I was around 15, the twins broke something of mine that actually meant something to me. It was a wooden model plane I built when I was a kid, the only thing I'd ever won an award for. It was displayed on a small shelf because Aunt Rita gave it a spot during one of her visits, and she told me she was proud of me for sticking with a project that took patience. One afternoon, I walked into the living room and found the plane snapped clean in half on the floor. Megan said I shouldn't leave cheap stuff out. Tyler said it looked lame anyway. They laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. Karen heard the noise and walked in, saw the broken plane, and immediately said, Nathan, next time don't leave things where people can knock them over. Never mind it had been on a shelf. Never mind they admitted to touching it. Never mind they thought it was a joke. In her mind, I was always the problem. Greg was standing behind her holding a newspaper, pretending to read. He didn't say a word. That was his specialty. Pretending silence made things better. He was under the impression that if he didn't pick a side, he was keeping the peace. Reality check. All he ever did was let Karen twist everything however she wanted. Things only got more ridiculous as I got older. When I turned 18, Karen tried to kick me out as soon as I graduated high school. Not because I did anything, just because she didn't like how quiet I was in the house. She said, your energy is throwing everything off. You're depressing to be around. As if existing was some kind of offense. Greg stood next to her the whole time, arms crossed, nodding slightly like he agreed. He didn't actually say anything, of course. He never did. In his head, he was probably thinking that staying silent would make the moment pass quickly. He always thought avoiding involvement was the same as avoiding conflict. Meanwhile, I was supposed to magically guess why I was being thrown out 2 months after graduating high school. I didn't argue. I just said, all right, packed my stuff, and called Aunt Rita. Now, Aunt Rita, that woman is the exception. Karen's older sister, and the only one in the family with active brain cells. Rita never treated me like some mistake that wandered into their home. She never compared me to the twins. She never made backhanded comments. She never assumed I did something wrong just because Karen said so. She used to tell me, you're different from them, but in a good way. Not in a pitying way, not in a coddling way. Just honest. She saw the twins for what they were. 2 overfed egos created by decades of Karen's favoritism and Greg's passiveness. Whenever I visited Rita, it felt like stepping into a completely different world. She didn't do big speeches about love or healing. She just treated me like a normal human being. Sometimes that's all it takes. So when Karen told me to leave at 18, I went to Rita's place without hesitation. She didn't freak out, didn't dramatize it. She simply said, yeah, I figured this was coming eventually. And that was that. I stayed with her until I got my job lined up and moved out on my own. I stopped trying to impress my family and stopped waiting for them to treat me better. And the black box I handed Greg on Christmas morning? It was my line in the sand. Now, let's talk about how I ended up with the kind of information that could nuke an entire family tree. It didn't start with emotion. I wasn't sitting in my apartment crying or wondering why my parents didn't love me. I was just tired of the same old nonsense. The comments, the favoritism, the weird looks. After a while, it just became annoying background noise. So one night, out of pure irritation, I decided to fact-check my life nothing dramatic. I just got curious about the Pierce family business, since Greg always acted like he built it from the ground up. I work in systems engineering. Digging through files and data isn't hard for me. I wasn't expecting anything more than boring tax documents or old meeting notes. Instead, the first thing that stopped me was a name I hadn't thought about since I was a kid, Daniel Ruiz. I vaguely remembered him as Greg's old business partner, who suddenly vanished from our lives when I was young. The twins used to call him Uncle Dan, and Karen always acted annoyed whenever his name came up. According to old documents, Daniel wasn't just a partner. He co-founded the company with Greg. They owned equal shares. So imagine my surprise when I checked the company website and the public records and found zero trace of Daniel. No former partner. No mention in the company history. Nothing. It looked like he'd never existed. That was my first red flag. I dug deeper into old folders, scanned documents, archived pages. Anything the internet still held onto, I saw a pattern. Daniel's name was slowly scrubbed out over the years. But legally, his ownership was never terminated, meaning Greg never filed the paperwork, meaning Daniel still legally owned part of the company Greg treated like his personal kingdom. According to Daniel, when he walked away, he never hired a lawyer or pushed for a buyout. He trusted Karen to handle the paperwork, and she handled it by burying his name everywhere except in the legal registry. That alone was strange enough, but the weirdest part was how everything connected to one person, Karen. Every file trail, every internal note, every reference to removing Daniel's name, all pushed by Karen. She couldn't legally remove him, so she did the next best thing, erased him publicly. That's when I knew something was off. I kept digging, moving from business records to personal ones. I accessed old email accounts Karen probably forgot still existed. Half the passwords were so predictable it was embarrassing. Birthdays, old dog names, the twins' middle names. Inside those emails were conversations between Karen and Daniel that left absolutely no room for interpretation. They were involved, for a long time, and not just a little. I found messages from before the twins were born. Romantic, explicit, detailed plans for meeting up while Greg was working or traveling, restaurant reservations, hotel confirmations, little jokes between them, and the timestamps lined up perfectly with when Megan and Tyler would have been conceived. When I saw photos of Daniel taken around that time, it stopped me cold. The twins weren't just similar to him, they were carbon copies. Same light brown hair, same eye color, same jawline, same build. I swear if you put Tyler and Daniel side by side, it looked like a before and after of the same person aging. But I'm not the type to jump to conclusions just because something looks obvious. I tested myself first, just to shut down any noise in my head. I ordered a DNA kit, swabbed myself, grabbed an old razor Greg had left at the house, and sent it in, then forgot about it. When the results came back, I opened them without any nerves or expectations. And there it was. Greg Pierce, 99.97% biological match. I stared at the screen and said, thought so. No shock, no emotional meltdown. Just confirmation that I wasn't the crazy one. Now I had a clean baseline. I was Greg's son. So if the twins weren't his, the difference would be obvious. That's when I decided to find Daniel. It wasn't hard. The man had a simple digital footprint, quiet life, different state. I reached out with a straightforward message, nothing dramatic, just factual. He replied after 2 days, shocked that I found him at all. We talked over video. He looked older, tired, but decent. When I mentioned the year Megan and Tyler were born, he got visibly tense. When I mentioned Karen's old emails, he froze completely. Then he explained everything. He and Karen had been together for longer than Greg ever knew. When she found out she was pregnant, she insisted he disappear for the family's sake. She said Greg could never handle the truth, and the twins would live a better life if he stayed out of it. Daniel didn't fight her. He left, and he never heard from her again. After hearing all that, there was only one thing left to do. I ordered 3 tests, 1 for Daniel and 2 samples from the twins. Daniel always suspected Tyler might be his, but I tested both Megan and Tyler just to be sure. He swabbed his kit and mailed it back right away. For the twins, I didn't need their cooperation. I grabbed a used toothbrush and a hairbrush from my parents' house, Arrogant people leave their DNA everywhere. A few weeks later, the results came in. Daniel Ruiz, 99.99% match to Tyler Pierce, 99.99% match to Megan Pierce. I sat back in my chair and laughed once. Not because it was funny, but because it was so painfully obvious. Of course they weren't Greg's. They never looked like him. They never acted like him. They were Karen's pride project from the start. Now I had everything. The affair, the timeline, the DNA, the business ties. Karen tried to bury the legal mess Greg never knew he still had. 30 years of lies wrapped in one neat folder. All that was left was waiting for the perfect moment to let the Pierce family meet their real reflection, and Megan handing me that paternity test on Christmas? Yeah, that was the moment. So I spread everything out on my kitchen table one night after work. I made multiple copies of everything because I knew exactly how my family would react. Deny, deflect, accuse, cry, scream, blame, repeat. It was predictable. They behave like they're the main characters of the universe and everyone else is part of the scenery. Once everything was organized, I put the most important item, the twins' DNA confirmation, into a sleek black box. Not because I wanted drama, but because the presentation mattered. The moment Greg saw it, the truth needed to hit him fast and clean. The box wasn't originally meant for Christmas. I wasn't planning some holiday showdown. But after years of being talked down to, dismissed, and treated like the random neighbor's kid who wandered in, I wasn't walking into their house empty-handed either, I told myself. If they kept things civil, the box would stay in my coat. If they didn't, well, then Christmas would be the last time they ever disrespected me to my face. And knowing them, I figured I wouldn't need to wait long. Before the holiday rolled around, I ran through the facts one more time. The twins had always claimed to be real Pierces. Karen built her entire personality around having the perfect family. Greg stayed quiet for decades, thinking it was the same thing as leading. They all acted like I was the extra piece in the box, something that didn't fit the set. Seeing everything laid out proved what I already knew in the back of my mind. I wasn't crazy. The night before Christmas, while I was packing my clothes, I slipped the black box into my jacket pocket. Not dramatically, not with some speech, just a simple choice. I was going there because Aunt Rita wanted me to at least make an appearance, and I respected her enough to do that. The box was for insurance. A line in the sand. If they crossed it, the truth would come out. I knew exactly how the day would go before it even started. Same decorations, same fake excitement, same twins acting like their existence was a gift to the world. Same passive Greg pretending silence counted as moral superiority. Same Karen acting like she ran the Pierce Corporation instead of a 4-bedroom house. The difference this year was simple. I had the receipts. Once everything was ready, I put each document into labeled folders. I backed up the digital files on a USB and uploaded copies to an encrypted drive. Then I took a final look at the black box on my table. It was about the size of a jewelry case, matte black, clean enough to look important without looking suspicious. Inside it, the folded paper sat on velvet. The DNA test for Megan and Tyler. The page that proved 3 decades of lies in one clean paragraph. I closed the lid and slipped it into my coat pocket. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the odd one out walking into that house. I felt like the only person who actually knew what was going on. The only one with facts instead of fantasies. When Greg opened the black box and unfolded the paper, the house went silent so fast it felt like someone unplugged the world. His eyes scanned the page, then scanned it again, and again. The man who spent his whole life pretending silence was wisdom suddenly looked like he'd forgotten how to breathe. Karen stepped forward. "Greg, what is that? Why do you look like that?" He didn't answer. His hand shook slightly, and he kept staring at the test results like the words were shifting on the page. I leaned back on the couch, arms crossed. "Go ahead, Dad. Read it out loud. Might as well let everyone enjoy the moment." Karen snatched the paper from Greg's hand, so fast she nearly ripped it. Her eyes darted across the lines, and I watched the exact second her face fell apart. Shock first, then denial, then anger. "What is this?" she demanded, glaring at me like I forged it myself in my basement. "What kind of garbage did you bring into my house?" "Science," I said. "Something new for you." Megan shot to her feet. "What did you do, Nathan?" "Me?" I raised a brow. "I didn't do anything except open a few old email accounts and run some basic DNA tests. The rest was done by your real father." That triggered her. "Real father? You're insane. Dad," she pointed at Greg, "is our father." I pulled a second set of papers from my jacket. "No, he's not. And the universe really wanted this moment to be poetic, because look what else I brought. I laid my DNA test on the coffee table next to theirs. The contrast was almost comical. Before you call anything fake, I said, tapping the top page, this one right here, that's me. And guess who matches Greg Pierce at 99.97%? Their eyes darted between the pages. Me, I said. The person you all spent decades calling the outsider. Greg looked at the page like it was a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. His shoulders shook once, subtle but real. Karen blinked rapidly. No, this is... I cut her off. Yeah, that's the irony. The only actual Pierce in this room is the one you tried to shove out at 18 because he was messing up the vibe. Tyler stared at my test, then at Greg, then back at me. His face went white. Megan stuttered. That doesn't mean anything. Oh, it means plenty, I said. Greg is my dad. Yours, I held up their test results, is Daniel Ruiz. You know, Dad's former business partner. Uncle Dan, Mom's favorite side activity. Karen threw the paper down on the table. This is fake. You're trying to destroy this family because you've always been jealous of the twins. I laughed. Lady, relax. I didn't sleep with Daniel Ruiz. That was all you. Greg's head snapped up. Karen froze like someone hit a pause button. Megan gasped. I grabbed the folder sitting beside me and pulled out the first printed email. Let's start with this one. Karen's love letter to Daniel from 31 years ago. Cute stuff. Real creative vocabulary. Karen lurched toward me. Give me that! I stepped back and held it up. No snatching. You already did that with the DNA test. Let's take turns. I set the email on the table next to the DNA results. Megan and Tyler looked from the papers to me, then to Greg, then back to the papers. Totally lost. Tyler frowned. Wait, Daniel Ruiz. Wasn't he Dad's old business partner? Bingo, I said. Former partner, co-founder, long-term affair partner with Karen. Father of both of you. Megan's face twisted. Shut up. That's not true. Really? I pulled out the photo I printed. The side-by-side comparison of Daniel and Tyler at the same age. Because this is pretty convincing. Tyler looked at the photo, and something in his posture shifted. His mouth stayed open, but he couldn't speak. You could practically see the gears grinding in his head. Megan, take a look, I said, sliding another photo over. You too. Might as well see how much you both resemble the man your mom wanted in the family more than Greg. Ah! Stop it! Megan screamed so loudly Karen flinched. This is fake! You're a pathological liar! Funny, I said, because the test says you're the daughter of Daniel Ruiz, and the emails say Karen tried to keep the whole thing hidden, and the timeline lines up perfectly, and Daniel himself confirmed the affair. So if I'm lying, it's incredibly consistent. Karen's voice cracked. Greg, say something. Tell him to stop. He's manipulating everything. Greg didn't move. His hands were on his knees, fingers gripping hard. His face was pale, but his expression wasn't blank anymore. It was broken. The weight of 30 years hit him all at once. Karen lunged for the papers again, but I slid the binder off the table and dropped it onto her lap. Go ahead, Karen. That's the full collection. Emails, calendar events, receipts, hotel confirmations, and the DNA tests. It's all there. Frame it if you want. She shoved it off her lap, and it spilled across the floor like confetti from hell. This is your fault, she screamed at me, voice cracking. You came here to destroy us. Actually, I said, I came here to eat cinnamon rolls and mind my business. You're the ones who gave me a paternity test like it was a greeting card. Tyler rubbed his face, shaking. Mom, what is this? What is going on? Megan kept repeating, this is fake, like she thought saying it enough times would magically rewrite genetics. Karen pointed at me, hysterical. He wants to break this family. I shrugged. Lady, I didn't break anything. You did. Back in 1992. Greg stood up so fast, the recliner slammed shut behind him. Everyone froze. He wasn't yelling, but his voice had more force than I'd heard from him in my entire life. Karen, stop talking. She blinked at him, stunned. Greg, stop, he repeated. I have been silent for years. But this, he gestured to the scattered papers. This is undeniable. Karen shook her head wildly. You think I would... Greg, it's fake. Nathan made this up. I know my wife's writing, he said, voice flat, and I know the truth when it hits me in the face. Megan tried to step between them. Dad, don't listen. He's trying to take everything from us. Greg looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see his golden child. He saw the truth. Megan, I'm sorry, but your brother didn't do this. Your mother did. Megan's denial shattered. She pressed her hands to her face and started sobbing like someone pulled the floor out from under her. Tyler sank onto the couch, staring at his hands. His voice was shaking. So, the guy we called Uncle Dan? That was actually your father, I finished. Yeah. Karen's sobbing finally broke through the yelling. She fell to her knees, hands over her face, crying in broken gasps. Greg sat back down slowly. I should have spoken up years ago, he said. I should have been paying attention. I thought silence kept the family together. I was wrong. No one responded. Maybe because there wasn't anything left to say. After a moment, I stood, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. Megan cried harder. Tyler didn't move. Karen was collapsing into herself. Greg stared at the floor like the truth had finally peeled back every lie he'd been living under. I paused at the doorway. For what it's worth, I said, I didn't come here planning to do this. You pushed it here yourselves. They didn't answer. I opened the door. I'm done with this family, I said. For good. The cold air hit instantly, but it felt cleaner than anything in that house ever had. I stepped outside, letting the chaos continue behind me without a second thought. I was halfway across the porch when I heard the door burst open. Nathan, wait! It was Tyler. He wasn't wearing shoes, just socks, and he nearly slipped on the porch steps. His eyes were red and swollen. This was the most genuine I'd ever seen him. Not confident, not arrogant, not mocking. Just a guy who finally realized his entire life was built on lies. He stopped a few feet behind me, breathing hard. Nathan, is it true? About Daniel? I turned toward him. Everything I showed you was real. He wiped his face with his sleeve. But does he even want to meet me? He wasn't yelling or angry. He sounded scared. And honestly, I wasn't interested in playing therapist, but I also wasn't going to lie. Yeah, I said. He does. Tyler blinked. How do you know? Because I talked to him, I said. Because he asked about both of you. Because he wondered what happened to the babies he was forced to leave behind. I paused. He's a better guy than the people in that house. Call him. Tyler swallowed hard. I don't know how to do this. I don't even know what to say to him. That's between you and him, I said bluntly. But he's not going to yell at you or call you names. He's not Karen. Tyler flinched at that. First time I'd ever seen him react to criticism of his mother. He stepped closer. Nathan, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. For everything. I nodded once. Good. That's a start. But I'm not sticking around to help you figure this out. He looked down at his socks, standing in the snow like he didn't even feel it. So you're really leaving? I left a long time ago, I said. This is just the physical part. He looked up with wet eyes. Will we ever talk again? Maybe, I said. When you know who you actually are and stop letting them think for you. Tyler nodded slowly, like it hurt, but made sense. Okay. I'll call him. I'll try. That's between you and your father, I told him. Not me. He took a shaky breath. Thank you, I guess. I shrugged. Don't thank me. Just don't waste the chance. Behind Tyler, Megan's screams echoed through the doorway. Tyler, get back inside. Do not talk to him. Mom said, Tyler. She showed up in the doorway, red-faced, hair wild, looking like a banshee who'd just lost her script. She wasn't crying from sadness. She was crying from the reality that the perfect golden child crown she'd worn her whole life had just been ripped off her head. Tyler, she shrieked, do not stand out there. He is lying to you. Tyler looked back at her, then back at me. And for the first time, I saw him make an actual decision instead of echoing whatever Megan said. He didn't move. Megan screamed his name again, but he didn't run. Good for him. I walked to my car, unlocked it, and slid inside without another word. I didn't comfort him, didn't tell him everything would be okay. That wasn't my job. Tyler stood there, hugging himself against the cold, watching me drive away like he was realizing his entire life was split into two parts, the one he grew up with and the one he was about to step into. Megan kept yelling behind him. Karen's crying got louder. Greg stayed inside, probably staring at the twin DNA results again. And me? I backed out of the driveway calmly, turned onto the street, and felt something I hadn't felt in that neighborhood. Not once, not ever. Freedom. They wanted to prove I didn't belong. I just proved I didn't need them. And as I drove home through quiet, snow-covered streets, the Pierce house shrinking behind me, one thought crossed my mind, clear and simple. I'm finally done. 6 months after that Christmas meltdown, my life barely resembles what it used to be. And that's a good thing I moved 2 states away, found an apartment with actual sunlight, upgraded my job, and built a routine that doesn't involve Karen barking orders or the twins acting like royalty. Everything is quieter, cleaner, and normal in a way I didn't know I needed. I've got a small circle of friends now. Real ones, not people who tolerate you because you're related by blood. We grab dinner, go hiking, watch movies without anyone comparing achievements like it's a competition I even started seeing someone. Nothing rushed, nothing complicated. Just easy, healthy, no guilt attached to being myself. Peace isn't this dramatic thing. It's a morning coffee on my balcony without tension in the air. It's finishing a workday without someone trying to belittle me. It's knowing the people in my life want me there because of who I am, not because they feel obligated. Aunt Rita keeps me mildly updated on the Pierce situation. She doesn't add emotion or commentary. She just tells me the facts and lets me decide if I care. Most of the time, I don't. But hearing the updates almost feels like watching a show I stopped tuning into. Tyler, according to her, reached out to Daniel 2 weeks after Christmas. They talked for hours. A week later, they met in person. Apparently, Tyler cried so hard he apologized 3 separate times before they even sat down. Now they talk regularly. Daniel flew out twice to see him, and Tyler visited Daniel's family in return. For the first time in his life, Tyler has a father who actually wants him. And from what Rita said, he's calmer than she's ever seen him. Good for him. Megan, on the other hand, hasn't handled the truth well. Her entire personality was built on the idea that she was the superior Pierce child, the golden twin, the favorite, the star student. Finding out she wasn't even genetically part of the family knocked the arrogance right out of her. Rita said she's angry all the time, snapping at people, blaming the universe, blaming me, blaming Greg, blaming Tyler, blaming anyone except the woman who caused the mess. She hasn't contacted Daniel. She refuses to talk about DNA. She's stuck in denial. And honestly, that's between her and reality. I hope she figures it out someday, but it's not my job to fix her identity crisis. Greg, well, Rita said he finally stopped staying silent. He filed for divorce 2 months after Christmas. Karen tried to spin the story as Greg abandoning the family, but that didn't stick. Everyone in the extended family knows the truth now. People who once admired her suddenly don't have much to say to her. Apparently, Karen's reputation tanked fast. Cousins who worshipped her stopped calling, old friends pulled away. Family gatherings got quiet around her. She doesn't show up to anything anymore. According to Rita, Karen keeps trying to correct the narrative, but no one believes her. It's hard to argue with DNA. Greg's been trying to process everything, according to Rita. He asked about me once, but I didn't respond. I don't hate him, but we're not building a new relationship either. 30 years of silence doesn't fix itself in a phone call, and he knows that. And me, I'm not angry anymore. I'm not holding on to anything. I'm just living my life. I don't want revenge or reconciliation. I don't want apologies or explanations. I don't want to step back into the Pierce world, not even to watch the fallout. That chapter closed the second I drove away from that house. I built something better, something mine, a home that isn't filled with tension, a life where my worth isn't determined by people who never bothered to see it, a future without the constant weight of trying to fit into a family that never made room for me in the first place. Aunt Rita visited me recently. She brought cookies and sat on my couch like she owned the place. She said, "You seem lighter, happier," and she was right. I finally figured out that peace isn't something you find. It's something you build. Once you stop letting the wrong people take up space in your life. Before she left, she hugged me and said, "You were always the real Pierce." I smiled because she didn't have to say it. I already knew. My family spent decades trying to convince me I didn't belong. The truth? They wanted to prove I wasn't one of them. Turns out I was the only real Pierce in the room. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.